Exactly how long has Ukraine been fighting for its independence?
In 839, the state of Rus was formed around Kyiv.
800 years later, the Tsardom of Moscow stole that name. The name Ukraine was first used in 1187. In the 13th century, this crossroad of civilizations became decisive in the Mongols' battle for Europe. After it weakened, Ukraine was forced to constantly defend itself. In the 17th century, the Cossack warriors formed a state called Hetmanate. They signed an agreement with the Tsardom of Moscow, which Russians, of course, violated. Somewhere around the time the USA declared its independence, Russia took it away from Ukraine. In 1917, Lenin became the new Russian leader, who, according to Putin, created Ukraine. In reality, though, Ukrainians fought for independence for years, but lost to Russian communists. On August 24, 1991, Ukraine declared its independence, but the real war for it was yet to come. In 2014, Russia first took land from Ukraine and then started a full-scale invasion in 2022.
Oh shit, here we go again.
So who's this Crimea really? Over 2,500 years ago, Crimea was inhabited by Scythians and Greeks, partially owned by the Roman and Byzantine empires, by the Khazars and Pechenegs, and traders from Genoa, Christopher Columbus's compatriot. Crimea has always been multinational and closely connected with the mainland. The Crimean Khanate was there for more than 300 years. It was created by Crimean Tatars or Kirimni. Ukrainian Cossacks fought against them, but then made alliances. At the end of the 18th century, Russia conquered Crimea, turned it into a naval base, and began the genocide of the locals. Despite that, at the beginning of the 20th century, Crimean Tatars still were the largest ethnic group here, until they were deported by Stalin. Many died along the way. Hundreds of toponyms were replaced with Russian ones. Crimea was always economically connected to Ukraine, thus in 1954 the peninsula transferred to Ukraine. When the USSR collapsed, everyone, including Putin, recognized Crimea as Ukrainian, so the occupation of Crimea in 2014 actually meant the beginning of Russian invasion of Ukraine. But it's time to remind them where the Ukrainian borders are.
What is Donbass? Easy. It's part of Ukraine. Donbass means Donetsk coal basin. It roughly spreads over two eastern regions, Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast. Previously, Donbass was mainly inhabited by nomads, but in the 16th century, Cossacks built fortresses on the site of Mariupol and Sloviansk. They ruled the territory until the Russian Empire seized it in the 18th century. Donbass is the land of mineral resources, therefore in the 19th century it became the land of foreign investments. So in 1869, British industrialist John Hughes founded Donetsk. In April 1918, in the struggle for independence, Ukrainians liberated the region from the Bolsheviks. Unfortunately, not for long. People from all over the USSR worked in Donbass, but the region was mostly populated by Ukrainians, so the USSR systematically Russified it. As part of independent Ukraine, Donetsk hosted Euro 2012 matches at one of the best airports and stadiums in Eastern Europe. When the so-called DPR and LPR were proclaimed here in 2014, thousands of Donbass residents protested, but the armed Russian units proved to be stronger and occupied the territories. Russia believed that it could do this to all of Ukraine, but Ukrainians have other plans.